Hey there, podcaster. I am so flippin' excited you're here because today we are talking about C of the CPR, what I call audit of your show, the clarity piece. Your biggest struggle is that you are not clear. And this is why your podcast is tanking. This is why your numbers aren't taking off. This is why you are on the struggle bus. And hello, I have been there too. I'm currently finally walking my way off the struggle bus. And here's how podcasting can, one, help you get clear on your messaging, which will help you take off your entire business. Two, why I call it the CPR audit, because we're going to resuscitate your business, resuscitate your podcast, resuscitate your passion, resuscitate all the things. We're going to talk about the C today, the clarity piece, because this foundational piece is where I see 99.9% of podcasters throw in the towel, struggle bust it through their business, and really just give up before the going gets good. Because here's the thing. My other podcast, I haven't posted since May of 2023. It is now September of 2024. And guess what? People are still listening. People are still signing up for the freebie over there. Granted, do I run that aspect of my business anymore? No, I don't run that aspect of my business, but those people are still getting the freebie and that list is still building. Even though I haven't posted in well over a year, there is magic here. You just gotta let it have the time to make the magic happen. So, are you ready to get clear? Even if it's a little bit clear as mud, let's do this.
Welcome to Beyond the Downloads. I'm Jen, your podcast bestie, here to tell you there's so much more about podcasting than just those numbers. So before you throw in the towel, you better listen up. We're diving deep into the heart of what makes podcasting truly special, from storytelling to connection, and yes, even healing. Think of me as your podcast life raft, ready to help you navigate those choppy waters of this podcasting world and the podcast overwhelm. From understanding the therapeutic power of sharing your voice to the practical tips to grow your show without losing your ever-loving mind. If you're ready to ditch the hustle and create content that leaves a legacy, a tsunami impact, no more ripples. Whether you're launching your first show or looking to take your podcast to the next level, I'm here to help you grow, launch, and yes, make some money from your passion. Let's make your podcasting dreams your reality. It's time to go beyond the downloads, where your story becomes a legacy.
So here's the problem that I see most podcasters, hey, I'm raising my hand, make, is that we come into this with unrealistic expectations and not a clear goal on what our podcast can do for us. We come in looking at download numbers and all these things, but we lack to see what's beyond the downloads, right? That's why we're beyond the downloads here. And if this is something you're struggling with, hey, I got a 45-minute CPR audit that we can look at your business, your podcast, your marketing plan, and we can create a 30-day plan together to start making some of these shifts. So podcastcpr.com, just so you know. We can work together. This is my zone of genius. But what I see for myself and for others, because it's really hard to see it in yourself, which is why I have a coach, is that we aren't really clear on multiple things. Our messaging, number one, our actual course or whatever. Maybe we've created a course because we've thought about it and we're like, we can teach this, and it's not landing. Maybe our messaging's off. Maybe it's not a course that somebody needs. Maybe you've positioned it with the wrong market. There's a whole bunch of things there. And we're not sure how to actually market our shows. So we're not clear on anything. We are just throwing the spaghetti because we love what we're talking about. We love everything about it. We know we have a message. We know we can do things. We know all the things. And if you're struggling with this, I'm not enough, no one's going to listen, I'm unworthy, go back to the episode that dropped on September 2nd. It was an EFT tapping to help you clear some of that clutter out of your mind so that you can show up in your magic. Of course, the link is in the show notes. So we got to get clear. And this is why when I run my launch courses, so whether you take the course and you do the course with the one-on-one, or you join for one of the 30-day live launches where we all get together and we live launch together as a group. So you get one-on-one and group and the launch course. what I see is so many people rush through the first module because it's a heavy, heavy piece here. That clarity piece is heavy because it's the foundation that you build everything else on. And the beautiful thing about podcasting is that if you don't have a strong foundation, you can still start a podcast and start messy, start without the clarity, and you will find the clarity, guaranteed, if you let it flow. This has happened to many of my clients. Again, my favorite story is that somebody came to me with an oil. I'm going to call her an oil slinger. She's really not. She sold essential oils to help health and wellness. By the end of us working together, when she shifted her podcast over, a little over a year later, she was a 501c helping people through the transition from human trafficking and sex trafficking into a healthier lifestyle. She still used the oil. She still did all of that, but we transitioned and it got clear. So there is a place for podcasting to help you find that clarity piece. But if you actually are looking to grow and make money with your show, you got to get clear. And there's a lot of things that come with the clarity, which is the clear of your purpose and your person. Those are the first two. Now, we've all heard all the avatar bullshit out there, right? We've created that avatar. Mine is Sally. Hi, Sally. How you doing today? But sometimes we create a fake person. What I really want you to think about when you're getting clear on your person is your story, your message, how did you get here? Because you, at some point, most likely have gone through the same things that you're helping someone else go through. Now, are there things that are outside of that you could be coaching on? Yeah, you could learn how to, do SEO or something like that and then teach that. Might not be a story behind it, but there probably is because you learned SEO, right? Why did you learn it? What did you do? How'd you get there? What were the biggest pitfalls? How are you keeping up with the time? So you really got to start thinking about you, because I know we always hear, think about your avatar, but I think that a piece of the foundation, this clarity piece that's missing, is your story, your unique process, how you got from A to Z. Are you someone like me who went A to Z and then you're like, oh shit, I got to do B, C, D, E, F, and all the ones in between? Because I'm a launch and fix as you go. But we really got to get clear on what it is you're doing. This is why you have seen so many renditions of this podcast that is about podcasting with my name on it, because I am slowly getting clearer. Do I recommend changing your name every time you get clear? No. Maybe change the tagline. Don't change the name. I do all the things wrong so that you don't have to. But I need you to get clear. What was your path? And this is why when I work with clients, I'm like, okay, I need you to start writing down the process of where you are right now and where you're going. Because what's going to happen to every single person who's a coach or a healer is that as you go through something, you're going to want to teach how to go through that thing. Right? So if you can start journaling or at least documenting some of your process as you're going through this will help you create content for your next level self. Right now, I need you to look backwards, and sometimes when we look backwards, it's not quite as clear because we've already gone through it. We only see what we want to see. We only remember what we want to remember, but I want you to do the best thing possible. And I want you to think about the journey that you took of whatever it is that you're teaching. So for me, my journey of podcasting, when I look back, was one morning I woke up and I was like, I want to be a podcaster. And this was, February of 2020, before the lockdown, before everything was cool. I was like, I want to be a podcaster. I didn't know how to do it. So what did I do? I went online, how to be a podcaster. What do I need? And I signed up for Libsyn that day. I released the same episode. I had my first guest booked the next day. And then I figured out how to do the editing and got that all done. And I started. My journey from there went on to, I ended up having people on my show, which was great because again, I launched right before we went into lockdown. So I was able to talk to new people. I was able to get inspired by people's stories that had never been told to me before. I got to talk to people that I would have never been brave enough to be like, hey, can we just have a coffee chat? Like, hey, come on my podcast. I want to share your story. I want to share your magic with people. I want to ask you the questions. It was great. In episode 7, I met Lakshmi Day, and I ended up in Costa Rica a year later on a retreat called Wild and Free, and it changed my life. 8 months after I started, I ended up being the number 52 in the top self-love podcast in the world. I was number 52. Mind you, I still had no clue what I was doing. I reached those numbers, and 9 months later, I was asked if I had a podcast program where I taught people to podcast when I was in a Clubhouse room. Remember Clubhouse? And guess what happened? I didn't have one. But do you think I said that? I was like, oh no, I actually have a course or a program coming out next week. Do you want the information? And in 2 days, in 1 day and within an hour, I created an opt-in page so that people could pay me. Within 72 hours, that program had sold out. And the next week I was running a how to start a podcast program. And then I continued to grow from there. But see how clear I am on that journey? So if I wanted to work with somebody who wanted to become a podcast strategist or podcast manager, I could use that podcasting journey of how it started and how it became something, because it allowed me to show up in a different way. So I want you to get crystal clear on your journey, number 1. Number 2, I want you to get crystal clear on the things that would have helped you on that journey. And this is great because these are what you can create as freebies. These you can create as themes in your podcast. You can do themed months. These are things that you can create doing different marketing campaigns. You can create mini paid courses. You can add them to masterminds. But what were some things that you wish you had? Some of the things I wish I had was a group support, which is why, my launch program comes with group mentoring, because hot seat coaching, where I could have talked through things that weren't just podcasting. How does podcasting relate to my business? Because the thing that I was missing in all of my launch courses that I had taken and paid for was that nobody told me how to blend it into my business. They taught me the basics, how to come up with theme, how to do all these other things, but they never taught me how to build it so that it fed that beautiful podcast funnel that I have nowadays. So that was something that was missing. So that's something that I added to my program that made it unique, is that not only do you get that, you get a one-on-one call with me, you get hot seat coaching where we actually talk about your business and how your podcast fits into your business, because that is so flippin' important. And people just teach you how to launch and edit and find SEO, but how does that actually fit into your freaking business? Hole in the market. I filled it with my profitable podcast launch system. Super love it. Super excited. It's great. So think about those things. Then, and only then, once you have that core clarity, I want you to start thinking about, how do you want to serve and what does that truly look like for you? So like I said in the beginning, for me, I really thought I wanted a multi-million-dollar business and I wanted to do all these things. But as I'm getting here, if it ends up paying me multi-million dollars, that's fine. But I also realized that a lot of the things I wanted were the fantasy that I had built in my head of the life that I wanted that I didn't really want. So you've got to get clear on what it is that you really want. If you want to spend a ton of time with your family because you have young kids and you only want to work 20 hours a week, build your business on 20 hours a week. What does that actually look like? How much money do you need to make? How does this fit into your time budget? Because podcasting does take time. This isn't like social media where you can just pop off. If you get lucky and hit one of the, you set it up and you get one of the viral videos and it sells a ton of programs, great. But podcasting is something, again, May of last year, I stopped my podcast. It's still getting people listens every day, and people are still signing up for that freebie. Again, that email list is now closed down, so all they get is the actual freebie that helps them. But I don't offer the coaching anymore, so they're actually getting the one step, and then now I have a friend that does the second step, so that's now added to the email for the freebie that I've offered. So they get my freebie, and then they get access to my friend. It's a win-win, but that podcast is still driving traffic. Podcasting takes time. It can take a year. It can take 2. One of my clients didn't pop off until year 4. Was there enough coming in that she continued to pay me? Yeah. But it wasn't like, pop, 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 pop. Now she's a top 5. And when I say top 5, I mean like all podcasts, she has been up in the top 5. Pretty freaking awesome. Like all podcasts. She hits those lists. She hits the top 200 list of all podcasts on Apple all the time. But it took 5 years to get there. She's on episode like 650 or something like that. It took time. So do you have the time in your business? You've got to get clear on that, because you can't just record and go. You have to, podcasting is very intentional. It's not just like popping off in your stories or on Instagram or Facebook or doing a quick little reel. You have to position yourself correctly, because there's not that searchability. I'm hoping as 2.0 gets bigger and bigger and bigger, there's more and more searchability. And now that YouTube actually feeds in the RSS feed, hopefully YouTube and being able to show up in Google searches and things like that. But what I really want you to start thinking about is like, get clear on what your freaking goal is for this podcast. Get clear on your journey for whatever it is that you're now teaching to others. You're sharing with others. What was your journey? What were those missing links? Because the P is for purpose and people. So if you don't have this clear foundation of your path, the holes in the market, what your actual goal is for this, if you don't have those pieces down and you've just skipped over to your passion and your people, there's going to be a misalignment. And what happens with misalignments? Frustration, fear, doubt, struggle, overwhelm. So we want to get clear on those things before we start thinking about our ideal client, before we start thinking about our purpose. And maybe you don't know your purpose yet. Maybe you're just going to start throwing things at the wall. I have so many podcasts. I have 2 secret podcasts. I have this podcast, the one that I closed last year that's still out in the world. And then I have one podcast that I just talk. It is so random. So I guess it's kind of secret podcast, but not really. But I just have a conversation. When I need to work through something, I plug in my microphone and I sit here and I work through it, because 1, it could be a really great episode. 2, I can always come back to this, because I could be like, hey, I was on the struggle bus during this part of my journey. What was it that I needed? How did I get out of that? Did I create a new process? And as you document things, again, recording your voice, like voice memos or podcasts, allows you to come back, especially for those of us that don't like to journal. I don't like to journal because 1, I have terrible handwriting. 2, my spelling, you're lucky that there's spell check if you read any of my copy. But you got to get clear on your journey, the holes that you were able to fill along the way in your journey. What do you truly want out of your podcast? Is it to serve? How is it to serve? And I really want you to think about it. How do you want to serve? I want to serve people because I really believe that your story is someone's life raft. Over the last almost 5 years of this whole podcasting thing, I am not the only person that's still on this planet because of a podcast. I came to a very, very dark stage of my life. I had a lot of suicidal ideation. I was praying every night to not wake up in the morning because I didn't feel that I deserved to be on this planet. I didn't even deserve to feel the air go through my lungs. I felt that the air that I was wasting by being on this planet was better deserved for someone else. And it was through my podcast and through interviewing guests and taking action and showing up when my podcast wasn't making me any money, but I was able to connect, I was able to share these stories, I realized that there was something magical in podcasting. And that's what I want. That's why it's beyond the downloads. Yeah, we can build big ass businesses with a podcast. We can bring in revenue. We can create that monetary abundance. But it goes so much farther than the downloads from the profit of what you could actually create. It's really hard to make friends as an adult. But let me tell you, I have made more friends through my podcast that I fly all over to go visit, or they fly and stay with me. because of my podcast. I made it through one of the second darkest time of my life where I didn't want to be on this planet because of my podcast. If you listen through past episodes of this podcast, there are tons of stories. Dave Jackson, how somebody that they were planning on ending their life on Halloween. And something that he said on his podcast changed this person's life. And this person reached out and thanked him. He had no idea it was a stranger. And now they connect every year. And it's like, hey, I'm glad you're still on the planet. My client that went from oils to 501c, ever changing. Those people that find their voice. I have a client right now that's on pause because she started doing her business one way and she realized, oh, I'm hiding in this strategy piece where this is what I really want to focus on. The same as me. I really focused on the strategy for so long. Now I'm focusing on what's behind it. So you got to get clear. You got to get so clear on what it is that you're trying to create. What purpose is this? Yes, we'll talk about purpose and we'll talk about people next week. But you got to get clear. You got to get clear on yourself, your journey, holes in there, what you truly want. If you think that you want this big business and you want to show up on every platform, and maybe you are showing up and repurposing on every platform, but you only have 2 hours a week, you're going to do a real shitty job showing up on all those platforms. It's just what it is. So you really have to look at your life, what you want, get clear on that. And that's your exercise for today. I want you to get clear on your journey, the holes in the journey, and what you truly want out of your podcast. And get clear. How much time do you really have to spend on marketing? Because 80-20 rule applies here. And I'm learning that more and more every day. The creating the podcast and creating the assets and editing and all that kind of stuff is 20%. You need to spend 80% of your time marketing. And that could look different. It doesn't mean it has to be on social media. It could be writing a newsletter, getting a blog, showing up, and getting guests, or showing up on other people's podcasts, or, doing Pinterest or things but you do need to get your podcast out there. There's not enough, doing deep dives in SEO. That's also part of your marketing, because positioning yourself correctly is part of your marketing, right? For those few people that you might actually get from a search. But we really got to get clear. How much time do you have to spend on this? How much time are you willing to dedicate yourself? How long are you willing to try this? Because if you aren't willing to try it for at least 6 months or longer, it's not worth it. Don't start. You can be the pod fade of everybody else. Why 85% of podcasts fail and don't make it past episode 7? Because it's hard. It's a lot of work. You can't just be like a go live. Like, you're listening to this version and it's been edited. It's been tightened up because I went on too many tangents. And that's what you need to start thinking about. How much time do you have? Where do you truly want to show up? You're going to see soon. I'll be rolling out an Insta website. If you haven't heard of those, it's like literally you make Instagram look like a website. You have 3 pinned reels at the top, and you'll see that I will add new reels on occasion when I want to and be in the stories. Because I don't want to create posts. Just don't want to do it. It doesn't serve me, and I haven't gotten anything from Instagram so far. And I tried hard for 2 years, and then I was like, screw this. You'll see that I start showing up more on Facebook because I like Facebook and I like the community aspect, and I like being in specific groups, and that's where I find my people. You'll see that I'm finally going to start showing up on my podcast consistently. Eventually I'll move to YouTube and blogs, maybe Pinterest, because I want that, although it's not instant gratification, I'm going to spend the time doing the SEO so that, like my other show, a year and a half later, it's still getting downloads, small downloads. But if I wanted to go back and monetize that list of people that were grabbing that freebie and take my friend out of there and add a coaching program back into my, I think it's health at every size, I could do that. And I could offer one-on-one coaching and just put that in there and do one-on-one coaching for those nutrition and health and wealth and all of those things. I could do that and monetize that list that's still growing a year and a half later. But you got to get clear on what it is you want, how much time you have, what your journey was, what holes you can plug in the market on your journey before you can start thinking about your people and your purpose. And this is where a lot of people fail. Again, if you need help with this, podcastcpr.com. Let's spend 45 minutes looking at your podcast, your business, your current marketing strategy, and let's see where we can make some simple tweaks so that you're not just running on the hamster wheel, getting burnt out, having to pay to feed yourself, paying for all these other things, paying for all the repairs on your hamster wheel, and you're not getting anything in return. Let's shift that. Podcastcpr.com. So I want you to remember this. Let's get clear. Next week, we're going to talk about the P's, the people, the passion, those kind of fun things. And the R is for revenue. And we'll talk about the revenue the week after that. So go out, make today amazing because you are beautiful, you are wonderful, you are worthy, and your message, your story, your gifts deserve a microphone. So show up, do the thing. You got this because you are enough. I'll see you next week.